Today on Week in Review, Terrace's fire chief provides details on a recent fire, the Skeena Local Action Network organized a march through Terrace, and a conservation group is publicly sounding an alarm. Hello, I'm Cael Maslin, and thanks for joining us here on Week in Review, where we cover all of the news here in the Northwest from this past week. Last weekend, a fire broke out at 5039 Medique Avenue in the city of Terrace, but thanks to the efforts of the Terrace Fire Department, who had 3 of their trucks dispatched to the scene, they were able to put it out in a bit over 10 minutes. As of right now, the cause of the fire is still under investigation, and while one person did suffer burn injuries from the flames, they are expected to have a good recovery. We recently spoke to Terrace Fire Chief Joel Brosson, who described the severity of the blaze as well as the strategy the firefighters employed to get it extinguished.
The structure was fully involved, meaning the entire building was encapsulated with flames when fire crews got to scene. Unfortunately, there was nothing that was able to be saved. We were in a defensive operation, meaning we attacked the fire from the outside, and we just contained the fire to the area that was burning and protected the exposures and trees around it.
Brosson also went on to thank the people who called in the fire early and made sure that it didn't spread any further. In Terrace, a small community made a strong statement of solidarity as the Skeena Local Action Network organized a march through the streets, adding their voices to the ever-growing calls for peace in Palestine. CFTK-TV's Helen Asante has more of an explanation.
The war between Israel and Palestine continues with heavy tolls on civilians and growing international calls for peace. In Terrace, a group marched from the city council to the MP's office where organizers presented a petition echoing concerns shared in many countries. Arms embargo now.
Land to Palestine, occupation is a crime.
From Kitzim Cael to Palestine, occupation is a crime.
From Kitzim Cael to Palestine, occupation is a crime.
Biro, bidam, nadivka ya aksa. Biro, bidam, nadivka ya aksa. Biro, bidam, nadivka ya aksa. Biro, bidam, nadivka ya aksa.
A march that echoed worldwide appeals for peace in Palestine and Canada to stop arms sales to Israel.
What do we want?
Arms embargo.
When do we want it? Now!
We're here as a group of concerned citizens and engaged people in Terrace who find the current Holocaust ongoing in Gaza to be completely unconscionable. And while we're a small group here in Terrace, we feel that we have to do everything we can in this moment in order to stop the genocide of the Palestinian people and demand that our government do more to stop the Israelis from massacring innocent civilians. In the most immediate sense, we're calling on the Canadian government to implement a 2-way arms embargo.
What do we want?
Arms embargo.
When do we want it? Now! What do we want?
The West, the U.S., Canada, other nations probably could have done more to stop them. In this case, we've been fueling it. We've been giving Israel all the weapons it needs to do this.
And in the march at the George Little Park, their goal, they say, is to stand for human rights, peace, and compassion, values they believe communities everywhere can come together around.
Coming together in collective direct action not only gives us hope, but it's our most important tool for change. So many injustices in this world are enabled by silence, by complacency, and by sheer ignorance of our rights, of our possibilities, and of the true state of things. By self-defeatism.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Helen Asante, CFTK-TV News, Terrace.
A conservation group is sounding the alarm after they said the Department of Fisheries and Oceans failed to renew contracts for fish monitoring at the height of the spawning season. Over to CFTK-TV's Jaylene Matthews to explain further.
Creek walkers have a very particular job of traveling streams in the region and counting fish, creating critical data to estimate stocks and manage fisheries. But some conservation groups are sounding the alarm as contracts have been terminated for local creek walkers at what is typically height of season in the Skeena and Nass tributaries.
It's an essential function for fisheries management because it allows us to know if we have enough abundance to allow for fisheries to occur. And what's happened is DFO didn't get it together this year for whatever reason to put proper contracts in place for these folks. And they cobbled together some short-term contracts to get them going for the season. And those short-term contracts ran out about 2 weeks ago. And so these folks have been dead in the water, and our salmon streams on the north coast have been going unmonitored for spawners at the height of the spawning season. It's an absolutely massive management failure by DFO, and it really needs to be addressed immediately to get these folks back on the water doing their job.
We reached out to the DFO asking why the lapse on Friday. They acknowledged the question and said they'd get back to us, but have not, despite follow-up. But Hill says one contract has now been reinstated as of Monday and another is in the works. However, he says this isn't an ideal solution. There's now been a massive gap in assessments in many areas. Hill says this highlights the chaotic and dysfunctional approach that the DFO is taking, despite a large investment made just last year.
This failure to keep our creek walkers in the water is coming right at the end of the Pacific Salmon Strategy Initiative, which is this program where the federal government spent $650 million over the last 5 years to conserve and restore salmon populations in BC. And again, this is the one job that they really need to do the most, is actually getting out there and counting the fish, which also lets them know if they've spent that money effectively and it's having the desired impact on the stocks.
For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Up next is a continuation of our MLA Spotlight series. Welcome back. The District of Kitimat has announced that the demolition of the old Nechako Center has finally been completed. The demolition is only one component of the Nechako Center concept plan that was created with input from local community members a couple of years ago. The entire concept plan is available on the district's website and is intended to be used as a guide to make an actual development plan with more exact ideas on what to do with the space. This Saturday is seeing the environmental group known as Kitimat Understanding the Environment act as the host of the annual Kitimat River Cleanup event. It's an event where people can just show up and offer their volunteer services, but teams of up to 10 people could register beforehand to take part. The event began at 10 a.m. at the River Lodge Recreation Center, and the main goal of the event is to pick up as much garbage as possible from the shoreline before it gets swept up by the river. Every team also needs at least one adult on it, along with an emergency contact. Now we'll continue our MLA Spotlight segment, where we bring you closer to the people shaping policy and representing our communities. We sat down with Skeena MLA Claire Rattay, making her the second MLA to join our series. Here is CFTK-TV's Helen Asante to present more of the information.
Rattay represents one of the most diverse and resource-rich regions in northern BC. In our conversation, she spoke with us about what inspired her to enter politics, the challenges she sees in our region, and her hopes for the future of the Northwest.
I moved up to Kitimat in 2011, and I moved there after I had struggled with some addiction problems, and I was homeless down in Vancouver. I decided to go to treatment. And I wanted a fresh start, moved up to Kitimat, and kind of was in the process of opening up my business. And I realized that I was having a lot of difficulty navigating that process with the District of Kitimat, and I was getting frustrated. There were some issues with, some outdated planning department stuff, zoning issues, and someone recommended to me that I should try to run for city council. And I was 20 years old, and I thought I didn't stand any chance of getting elected, but I decided to take a chance and do it anyhow. I'd always been interested in politics. And so I ended up running, and I got onto council, and it was a really, really amazing 4 years. I enjoyed my work there a lot. I learned so much. And through that time, I started recognizing that, in my opinion, we didn't have sufficient representation.
She says those experiences now drives a commitment to housing, healthcare, community development, and supporting indigenous initiatives across the Northwest.
If we look at one small portion of the healthcare issues, it might be a small portion, but it's having a huge and devastating impact. For example, for decades, we have known that generationally the baby boomers were going to start to age and that we were going to have some really serious gaps in our healthcare system. We haven't been building out long-term care, assisted living facilities, and now we're seeing what's happening with the shortage of home care nurses. I've always been a big proponent of aging in place when it's possible. I think that, our home care system as it stands right now, I don't understand. We're the only province that charges as much as we do for home care services. It should be something that's either free or heavily subsidized to encourage people to be allowed to age in their home if that's what they choose to do. But we don't have that ability in this region. We are facing serious shortages when it comes to home care nurses. Specifically here in Terrace, this has been a really, really devastating impact. And it's harder up here to recruit and retain people. It just is. If we can get more people trained from the north, they're more likely to stay and want to work in the north, right? I think that at the end of the day, what I'm looking for is the equality of opportunity. I want us to have the same opportunities up here in northwestern BC as every other part of the province has.
And was the driving force behind the Premier's recent tour of the Northwest.
When I started in this position, I found out that our Premier had actually never been to Kitimat and had never toured the LNG Canada facility. And I was just so frustrated because I'm thinking, this is huge. It's monumental for not just our region, but for this entire country. As the Premier, you should go and see the scale of this project and what it means for our community. I'm always advocating for more members of government, as well as many of my colleagues, on the opposition side, to come and see our region and see what we have to offer here.
Rattay's path is not only an example of overcoming adversity, but also a reminder of the role that life experiences can play in shaping leadership. Helen Asante, CFTK-TV News, Terrace.
After the break, recent government decisions are seeing Coast Mountain College change their future plans. Welcome back. The Smithers RCMP announced that they have officially secured funding from the provincial government via their Community Safety and Targeted Enforcement Program. The purpose of C-STEP is to allow officers to take on additional overtime shifts so they can increase the amount of proactive patrols in the community. These new funds come after the Smithers RCMP had taken part in a similar program last year called SIGHT, which got positive feedback from community members. C-STEP has also seemingly worked quite well in the community of Terrace, with the local RCMP detachment reporting a high number of additional arrests during the previous couple of months. And in line with that, the town of Smithers announced that they're moving forward with multiple new initiatives that are intended to support the vulnerable and better safety in the community. Town Council awarded a contract at their latest council meeting that will see security personnel patrol the downtown core and other strategic locations, while also looking out for the temporary overnight sheltering area by Town Hall. The personnel will be active between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., and they're being fully funded by the Resource Benefits Alliance. Smithers also adopted a bylaw that they say gives bylaw officers the power to more effectively enforce shelter rules and support both health and safety for all site users. One of the most recent creations of a local artist now adorns the Howe Creek Trail, and it's for more than just to look at. A brand new bench was recently added to the Howe Creek Trail, where it overlooks the creek located just east of the E.B. Street Fish Hatchery. This new bench was the creation of a local artist responsible for starting his own art gallery called JJ's Wood Art.
The main person I'd say in behind this is a sponsor, and that would be Kim Hayworth from Terrace Community Forests, who actually approached me with brainstorming the idea of what could be done in order to beautify some of the beautiful trails we have around. And then first thought was, of course, like a place to rest, because there's as well elderly people that walk these trails, and some of them are fairly long without a place, so we decided to put in a few benches, and I made several for on Ferry Island and as well a few for on Howe Creek.
JJ also explained that the animals that are featured on the bench were chosen since it relates to where it ended up being located.
The idea came because the location we chose is close to a little pond on Howe Creek where there's always wild ducks around, and so I went with a duck theme and made it mama duck and a couple little ducklings and some ducks flying in relief carved in the backrest just to suit that spot. So
residents have been said to be giving the bench positive feedback on social media as well as in person when JJ gets the chance to interact with them. The Terrace Community Forest provided the funds for the creation of the bench, and now it sits in its spot, available for anyone to use to take a break or perhaps enjoy the sights of nature surrounding it. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cael Maslin. Still to come, a landmark Haida Gwaii signing has raised some concerns. Welcome back. A landmark sighting in Haida Gwaii is now raising concerns over what it truly means for property owners on the islands. CTV's Rob Buffum explains.
It was heralded as a breakthrough deal. Last spring, the province recognizing Aboriginal title to Haida Gwaii with ceremony and legislation. The deal affirmed by the BC Supreme Court last Friday. But the opposition Conservatives say the agreement and subsequent court order raised serious concerns about private property rights.
Private property rights are not protected by our Constitution, whereas Indigenous rights are. We are seeing today a tremendous amount of instability and uncertainty because people no longer know what your private property rights are in British Columbia.
The landmark deal grants Aboriginal title to the whole of Haida Gwaii, but explicitly spells out fee simple private property remains intact, as does public infrastructure. The NDP and Haida Gwaii call Rustad's concerns fear-mongering and say the agreement actually provides clarity about private property.
I think it is dangerous to stoke that fear in the public. Indigenous people have been more than accommodating.
Making an agreement with Haida is about creating certainty here on Haida Gwaii. And that's for private property owners, that's for business owners, that's for the Haida themselves, that's for everybody.
The case comes on the heels of the controversial Cowichan Tribes decision last month that recognized the coexistence of Aboriginal title and private property and called Aboriginal title senior. The province is appealing, noting the uncertainty raised by the decision. Rustad says the coexistence of the two rights here, despite the language of the agreement, raises concerns down the road because Aboriginal title is a constitutional right and fee simple isn't.
Yes, we have an agreement, but I would suspect that if a future Haida nation, Haida government, decided to back away from that, claiming that their Indigenous rights under the Constitution override private property rights, I suspect they would win that case.
The Haida Nation is honorable. We're honoring our agreements. We're honoring our commitments to the people that we live together with on Haida Gwaii.
Robert Buffum, CTV News.
Coast Mountain College says the federal government's decision to cut back on international student visas is reshaping the school's enrollment and future plans. CFTK-TV's Helena Sante has the report.
Speaking with External Relations Director, who says fewer permits not only impact tuition revenues, but ripple into the local economy, from housing markets to small businesses.
So we've seen a huge decline in the number of students interested in coming here. That impacts our communities because a lot of businesses rely on those newcomers to take roles in the, at the bank and the store and all of the Northern Health and so on. So that makes it more challenging for business owners if they have less staff to rely on. But there's little we can do to change that. Those are the regulations and we have to operate within them.
But she assures the situation will not affect the standard and quality of services students receive, emphasizing the school's commitment to providing a strong learning environment despite the changes.
We are doing everything we can to prevent this from impacting those individuals and making sure that they have a really excellent educational journey with us. I don't think they should be concerned about the level of service, the level of education. It's going to remain excellent. In terms of international students, I would encourage them to consider the programs that, such as Social Service Worker Diploma, which is a 2-year diploma. It is PGWP eligible, and there are lots of work available in the social services sector. Similar with early childhood education and criminology diploma, environmental geosciences diploma. We have lots of programs that are of interest potentially and would lead to excellent jobs in our region. We're going through a difficult period right now. Things are challenging in terms of upsetting news. We're downsizing. We're probably going to have to say goodbye to some valued colleagues, and it's going to be really hard. But we will carry on, and the Northwest needs local education so people can train here and stay here, and so I'm confident that after we get through this period, the school will be in good shape.
Helena Santos, CFTK-TV News, Terrace.
In Prince Rupert, a remarkable woman has dedicated nearly a century of her life to caring for injured and abandoned wildlife. At 90 years old, she continues to run a small shelter that has become a sanctuary for animals in need. Once again, CFTK-TV's Helena Sante has more information.
From rabbits, ducks, owls, and even eagles, her home has turned into a refuge for creatures that might otherwise be lost.
We've put over 3,000 cats into new homes since we started, and never charged a penny for one of them.
She is an inspiration, a formidable woman who has given her life to protecting and nurturing wildlife. While she occasionally receives volunteer help, she says more support is urgently needed, especially access to healthcare for the animals in her care.
To get help diagnosing the birds and the animals without paying an arm and a leg, that I just don't have that kind of money.
Getting antibiotics is also her main challenge, she said.
Trying to get antibiotics, because everything that comes in here, it's either broken or it has infection or it's been bit by another animal. Antibiotics you have to have.
Her message is simple. Saving wildlife is a community effort, and every hand and every resource makes a difference. And at 90, she shows no sign of slowing down.
Just keep going, one foot in front of the other. You don't quit till everybody's fed, watered, and comfortable for the night.
Helena Santos, CFTK-TV News, Terrace.
That wraps up this week's edition of Week in Review. Make sure to tune in to our regular newscasts on Monday at 5, 6, 6:30, and 11 o'clock here on CFTK-TV. Thank you for tuning in, and have a good weekend.